Good day to you once again, my listener. Welcome to my channel on online logic and critical thinking. If this is your first time on this channel, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more updates. If you're new to logic, please also go through our previous short videos for a catch-up. If you recall, in our last episode, we discussed negation in formal logic and how it is presented in logical symbol. This week, we shall be discussing conditional statements and the corresponding logical symbol. And we may ask, what is a conditional statement? A conditional statement is a group of at least two propositions or statements showing logical implications. A conditional statement is used to model cause and effect relationship between propositions or statements and making logical inferences. The most common pointer to a conditional statement in our everyday discussion or arguments is the word if. Anywhere we find the word if, it means that particular statement is a conditional statement. To represent the word if as found in any of our discussion or arguments into a logical statement, it becomes if so, then so in a conditional statement. For a better understanding, it is important at this juncture to discuss the features of a conditional statement. A conditional statement contains at least two propositions, showing that the statements are related. Number two, the relationship between the propositions is that of implication, where the first proposition implies the other. And in any conditional statement, there must be an antecedent and a consequence. The first statement or proposition in a conditional statement, which is introduced by the word if, is called antecedent, while the second statement or proposition introduced by the word then is the consequence. For example, if we make a statement such as, if John is sweeping the house, he is a darling, we find out that this is a conditional statement because of the word if. However, there are two propositions in this statement. One is that John is sweeping the house, and the second is that John is a darling, showing that the two propositions are related. To put this conditional statement into a logical statement, it becomes, if John is sweeping the house, then John is a darling. The first proposition, John is sweeping the house, introduced by the word if, is the antecedent, implying the consequence, which is introduced by the word then. The most common symbol used for a conditional statement is the forward arrow symbol, and that is what we'll be adopting in this lesson. Now let's denote our propositions with variables. John is sweeping the house becomes our P, and John is a darling becomes our Q. To denote these statements in logical symbols, if John is sweeping the house, then John is a darling becomes P forward arrow Q. The end result is that we have a conditional statement whose antecedent is P and the consequence is Q. The antecedent P representing John is sweeping the house, and Q, which is a consequence, representing John is a darling. If you notice also, we have the parentheses, which people usually call brackets. It plays a crucial role in formal logic by specifying order of operation and clarifying structure of logical expressions. They are used to group sub-expression, indicate scope and logical operation, and required to prevent confusion. I want to assume at this junction that we understand what the conditional statement is. However, let us try another example using our last episode lesson on negation and how to incorporate it in conditional statements. Let's take the statement, if Alfred will not read, then Alfred will fail. If you remember in our last episode, not signifies negation, and negation is represented in a logical statement as it is not the case that. So if you make this a logical statement, it becomes, if it is not the case that Alfred will read, then Alfred will fail. To put that in symbol, the negation of the antecedent must come up first, which is tilde P, then Q, which is the consequence. Here we have a conditional statement whose antecedent is a negation of P and the consequence is Q. Let's look at another example. It is not the case that if Alfred will read, then Alfred will fail. A look at this statement shows that it's the negation of a conditional statement. And if you recall, I told you parentheses are used to avoid confusion. Now, to show that the whole statement is carrying a negation, the negation comes first, then a parenthesis before the conditional statement, which is symbolizing that the whole conditional statement is negated. And here we have a negation of a conditional statement whose antecedent is P and the consequence is Q. Let's take a look at a little more complex example. The statement, it is not the case that if Alfred will read, then Alfred will not fail. This is also a negation of a conditional statement. However, the consequence of the negated conditional statement is carrying a negation. And so, to put this in logical sentence or statement, it will become, it is not the case that if Alfred will read, then it is not the case that Alfred will fail. To symbolize this, we start by showing that the whole conditional statement is a negation by putting the tilde, and in the parentheses, the conditional statement will be the antecedent, which is Alfred will read, implying the consequence, which is it is not the case that Alfred will fail. So here we have a negation of a conditional statement whose antecedent is P and the consequence is the negation of Q. I hope you've learned something new so far. For our exercises, I want you to symbolize the following statements using the variables P and Q. Please drop your answers in the comment section where I'll be checking them out. In our next episode, we shall be discussing more compound conditional statements and their symbolizations. Please stay tuned.